In today's video, I'll do a quick mix of a small project using mostly EQs and limiters. I'll also be talking about equalizers in general, comparing Parametric EQ2 versus Fabfilter's ProQ3. In my opinion, both sound fairly similar in quality of sound. When it comes to price, Parametric EQ2 comes with every single version of FL Studio starting at about $130, while Fabfilter's ProQ3 is about $180 US, so quite expensive. Let's take a quick listen at the project we'll be working with today. The only thing that ProQ3 brings to the table, in my opinion, is you can make a specific band dynamic, which is pretty cool, but you can still do this with Parametric EQ2, you just need to combine it with a fruity peak controller. I think this is a great place to start, so let's take a look at how we can do this in both plugins. With ProQ3, it's pretty straightforward. Add a point to the targeted frequency, go to the drop-down, enable dynamic, then you can play with the dynamic range, and you're done. With Parametric EQ2, I made a free patcher preset. If you want to download it, the link's in the description. If we go to the map tab, there's two main branches. The first goes to frequency splitter and sends the frequency in yellow to the peak controller, and the peak controller tells the EQ to duck when there's a frequency present. When you load it up, all you have to do is select the targeted frequency and turn up the peak to the amount of ducking you want. The Q knob changes the width of the EQ band. In general, you shouldn't have more than 4 elements playing at the same time, and often 3 elements can work very well. In this project, we have 3 elements in the intro: sustained chords, rhythmic chords, and a melody. In the drop, we have drums, a rhythmic section which is the bass and the chords, and also a melody. Each of these elements can have multiple layers, but it's still considered one element. To me, there's 3 levels of EQing. In the beginner level, you should get familiar with brick wall EQing. In the intermediate level, you'll get familiar with high shelf and low shelf. That's basically boosting or reducing the highs or low frequency. In advanced EQing, you'll use EQ to reduce resonance or boost it to create tonality. But this can really mess up your sound, so I'd recommend sticking with only brick wall EQing if you're a beginner. Let's do a quick mix of this small project using only Parametric EQ2 and fruity limiters. Just keep in mind that the final result won't be a perfect mix because we're only using EQs and limiters. While normally you would have access to a wide range of tools like compression, reverb, delays, distortion, and the list goes on, but hopefully you'll get the idea. Let's start with the kick and clap. The kick has too much of a click in my opinion. A clicky kick is not a bad thing because it allows your kick to cut through the mix, but to me this is just too much, so I'll cut some of it out with a brick wall EQ. I'll add a second EQ to lower the high end. This will allow the kick to still have a little bit of click and keep some of its attack. For the clap, I'll use a brick wall EQ to cut as much of lows as possible before the clap sounds too thin. I'll also add a limiter to the kick and clap bus because I don't want my kick and clap to go over -6 decibel to keep some headroom. Let's move on to the bass. If we look in span, we can see that on the 4th chord, there's way too much low end. To fix this, I'll get rid of some of the sub frequencies and layer it with a sub to be able to better control the low end. Sub frequencies are very big, and I only want my kick and my sub to be in those frequencies. Let's add some sidechain to the sub and the bass with Fruity Limiter, which is a good trick to prevent two elements in the same frequency space from playing at the same time. For the chords, I'll get rid of some of the lows, and I'll add a second EQ to lower the 5K range because I find it a little too bright and I want some space for the melody. For the melody, I'm just going to raise the 1K a bit to help it cut through the chords. And I'll lower the same frequency on the chords for the same reason. I'm pretty happy with the melody like it is, but I would normally have 3-4 layers for the melody, and odds are I'd want to roll off some of the lows and maybe some of the highs. There's a lot more that I would normally do when mixing, but for the sake of keeping this video at the 5-minute mark, I'm going to stop here. In my opinion, this mix already sounds cleaner, less muddy, there's more headroom, so in the final stages of mastering, you'll be able to get more volume with compression. The main reason that I wanted Fabfilter Pro Q3 in the beginning was for the brick wall feature, but after comparing it with Parametric EQ2, I honestly find them extremely similar. I just don't think it's worth $180 when you have access to Parametric EQ2 for free. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this quick EQing mixdown. If you did, give it a like. Next week's video is going to be a remake of My Way by Calvin Harris, so if you want to see that, make sure to subscribe, and hopefully I'll see you then. Peace.